Hey everybody, it's John Pollock and welcome to another edition of Fight News Now. On today's show, I'll be chatting with Robin Black and John Ramdien about Saturday night's card from Salt Lake City, Utah, as the UFC enters Utah for the first time. And we will be hearing from Dennis Bermudez as well as Cub Swanson on the show. Stick around, it's Fight News Now and it all begins now. Here with John Ramdien and Robin Black. The UFC is in Salt Lake City, Utah on Saturday night. And we were having this discussion before. The Rio Olympics kickoff. Do you think that Saturday night's card is going to be affected by this? I mean, people are going to be full into Olympic fever. This is also an Olympics where the time zone doesn't play with North American viewers. It's only an hour ahead. Do you think that this UFC card is going to get hit with this competition?
I just personally think this card in general, unless you're a serious fight fan and this is your sport, it's going to be difficult to pull in eyeballs because they just don't have the marquee names on the fight card. So if you're tuning in and you see the preview of what's going on, I don't know how enticing that is for the hardcore fans as well as your average casual viewers. So I think it's going to be a difficult night. Doesn't mean that it's not going to be a sensational night of mixed martial arts.
No, but when you're looking at numbers,
exactly.
That's star power.
Exactly.
We might get some great performances on Saturday. I just question how many people are going to be watching this and knowing the schedule ahead for the UFC as well. Not everyone is dedicating each and every Saturday night to 6-7 hours of UFC fights.
From August 20th till mid-October?
9.
9. Now, they're pretty great ones. You got Maya and Condit one weekend. You got
Josh
Conor
Barnett
and Diaz.
and Arlovsky live here.
Yeah, I mean, these are great fights. Do you take a break if you're a fight fan? I don't. I want to watch them. And, you know, sometimes think from the fighter's perspective, this can be a great thing. It's enough to worry about the fact that there's a trained professional athlete standing just over there, like really not very far away, and they're about to tell him and you that it's time to fight each other. That should be all we're worried about. So sometimes for these athletes, you can, like Pollock was saying, get some phenomenal performances because they can just worry about concentrating on fighting. And we've had some friends and some athletes down there that are like, Salt Lake City is beautiful. They're also like, it's kind of weird. So it's probably a neat week for these fighters.
We've also seen, and this isn't, you know, an exact science, but since the earlier weigh-ins, we've seen a lot of dynamic performances coming out of guys, and whether that is related to the weight cut, how much stock you want to put into that, that's subjective. But nonetheless, you have that factor in this, but it's also kind of juxtaposed by the fact these fighters are going to be fighting 4,300 feet above sea level, and I think that becomes interesting as well, because we've seen in the past, especially in Mexico City, where you've seen guys like Gilbert Melendez that never got tired in fights. Cain Velasquez, a perfect example as well, that got seriously impacted. These are world-class athletes where elevation, that's a real thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it's their responsibility. Them and their team, they should be looking at where they're fighting and how to make sure that they're properly prepared for whatever the scenario is. But you mentioned the weight cutting issue. You've talked to fighters too. Pretty much everybody we've spoken to says that this earlier weight cut will allow for better performances. You're going to have fresher fighters, and in the end, it's the fans that benefit.
And they all knew it as soon as they heard it. Anyone who's ever fought or anybody who's ever been close to fighting, if you've had early ones and late ones, the early ones are better. That feeling of being absolutely depleted, dehydrated, malnourished, all of it, it's a terrible feeling. And within an hour, hour and a half, as soon as you're slowly putting back fluids and nutrients and the things the body needs, you feel better. Wouldn't you rather feel that at 2 p.m. the day you fight than at 8 p.m. the day before you fight? I mean, it's just a better scenario. You get a longer time of feeling invigorated and feeling ready to go do battle.
So as you guys look at this card, what is standing out for you? Because there's some very interesting prospects on this card. I know what you're going to say. You're all about the Fight Pass main event. No, I think you could see, if Cub Swanson and Tetsuya Kawajiri were put in the main event slot of the TV portion, I don't think you would have any arguments from people. I'm not against Yair Rodriguez and Alex Caceres. I think that actually is a really fascinating fight and much closer than some people feel it will be. But certainly Cub Swanson, you could say, is the biggest name on this card.
Yeah, and again, that's what I look at. We have to be honest. You're looking at a fight card. The reality is we love mixed martial arts, so when two combatants get inside of the cage and they're able to showcase their creative nature and all their hard training and their skill set, we love watching that. But we feel that, you know, I think most people realize, or they see, fighters in the UFC, that means you're at a certain skill level. Now, That's just not the truth. There are certain fighters that deserve to be profiled in a main event slot because of their experience, who they faced, where they train, a whole bunch of different factors. And I believe Cub Swanson is one of those guys. Now we know because of Fight Pass that they're trying to build it, and why not have the dedicated fans, the ones that are actually interested in Cub Swanson and Tatsuya Kawajiri, drive them there. So the rest of the card becomes a showcase, and Yair Rodriguez is one of those fighters that they believe could be a potential star, depending on also a specific market. So yes, it makes sense, but is he a main event fighter at this point?
Well, when you get put into that situation, people get opportunities in your life. You get a promotion of some kind. Somebody comes along and says, we're going to try you at this. You got to go kill it. And this guy gets that. Both of these guys get that. We're going to get a super cool fight. On some level, who cares who watches it, or if you'd rather watch the Olympics? I mean, the Olympics is a pretty big thing, right? Like, this thing's been around for quite some time. And so, yeah, a lot of people are going to watch that. But for the fighters themselves, they have to go in there and blow people's minds, whether that's the audience that's watching it, or that's Joe Silva, or Sean Shelby in the case of the 145ers in the main event. They have to blow their minds. But imagine you're Yair Rodriguez or you're Bruce Leroy, and you just have the performance of a lifetime. You really do you get to fight Cub Swanson or Kawajiri next? Are either of those guys really ready for that assignment? And that is why Cub Swanson versus Kawajiri is the fight you can't miss.
I might be reaching here, but you also look at a number of these guys, and whether you're a Joe Gigliotta that's making his UFC debut, or a Hani Jason that we haven't seen fight since May of last year, we're not talking about guys that are maybe ranked 4th and they just want to eke out that win to preserve that spot. You're talking about guys that maybe are 30th or 25th in their division. They want to go out there and have a spectacular finish in order to jump several spots and jump up into that big contenders mix in the top 10, top 15. And I think that translates well to cards like this, where you're going to get guys taking a lot more risks, because we're not talking about 3 versus 4 and how it's just a game of inches. This is one where there's a lot to gain.
Very true. And one of the things, this is how the undercard fighters can help the show in general, because we've seen it in the past where it's like, I don't know who this guy is, but I got to tell my buddy to tune in right now because these guys are beating the hell out of each other. And then you've seen the numbers grow. Ultimate Fighter Season 1 is a perfect example of that. So nobody knew who Stephan Bonner and Forrest Griffin was, and then people saw what they saw, and they needed the rest of the world to tune in as well. This is the opportunity that these young fighters have. Nobody's paying attention, so they have to give people a reason to tune in.
Yeah, there's always a reason. Yeah. I mean, if you love something, there's always a reason. On one hand, we're like, hey, maybe a lot of people won't watch this. That whole Olympics thing, I heard of that. They might be watching that thing. But on the other hand, you make a great point. These guys have something to prove and something to gain. And think about this one. Normally, it's UFC 202. It's going to be really hard to get that $50,000. Yeah. You look up and down this card, you're like, I think I can get that tonight with one big performance. It's going to be tough. Cormier's fighting here, and Connor's fighting there, and Ronda's fighting. We're going to have a hard time doing it. On this card, it's like, damn, if I throw out that spinning hook kick I've been keeping in my back pocket, I might put 50 grand in. You're right. We can get some of these cards produce crazy action.
Last thing, there's some people out there that aren't quite sold on Yair Rodriguez yet. Is Alex Caceres at a level where a solid win over an Alex Caceres suddenly, there is a spotlight on Yair Rodriguez that is deserved?
Charles Rosa is a good win, Andre Fili's a good win, but Alex Caceres would be the best win because people know his name. They've seen him from The Ultimate Fighter. You know, he just has a persona. You can go out and get a win over a guy like that. You're certainly legit. Now, he is legit, but this makes him more legit.
Yeah, Diego Sanchez, Joe Lozon, some of these guys become action fighters you can't miss. That's the destination for Yair Rodriguez, regardless of who he beats, but you still also want to be winning so you can become even more than that.
And don't sleep on Alex Caceres. But the prelims are coming up Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Tune in here on Fight Network if you're in Canada. 4 fights coming your way from Salt Lake City, including Court McGee against Dominique Steele.